Good morning. I'm Mike McMullen, president of the Carroll County Chamber of Commerce. I want to welcome you to the latest edition of our webinar series, and you're in for a real treat today with Mr. Todd Burrier. Todd's great. I want to give a big shout out and a big thanks to our friends at CMC for helping us with all of these, for streaming them live on Channel 19, on their website, their YouTube channel, their Facebook page. These folks are amazing. They're wonderful partners to have here in the community. I also want to encourage you to keep in mind shopping local whenever possible, especially at this time. The businesses here really need it. I know we all like to go to Amazon at times, some of us less than others. But when I last looked, Amazon doesn't pay 5 cents in local taxes. I've never seen them sponsor a Little League team or give to the nonprofits the way that our businesses here in Carroll do. So please, you can go to carrollcountychamber.org. We have a membership directory with about 600 members. And we also have all of our events listed on our website, like the upcoming webinar we have on June 18th, 8:30 in the morning. Again, it's going to be with Miss Kelly Frager, and she'll be talking about emotional intelligence. And we have a couple of spots left for our Leadership Carroll class of 2021 that starts in September. So, and you'd be more than, if you're interested in going, you don't want to wait. You want to get onto our website. You want to fill out the application. If you have any questions, you can always call me at 410-977-3111. We may have some time, I think we will, for some Q&A at the end. So as we go, if you have any questions, you can type them into the actual little chat box, and I'll try to field them towards the end. But enough of me. I want to move on to the speaker that you've all signed up to hear, Mr. Todd Burrier. He's an entrepreneur, he's a speaker, he's a coach, trainer, and he's the author of books and audios. And his newest book, 3 Circles, Living the Path to Higher Achievement, is what he'll be talking about with us today. Todd is also the keynote speaker for years now with our actual Leadership Carroll classes. He speaks and kicks things off at our retreat, and he helps us wrap things up at our commencement because he's an amazing person and he's a very good friend of mine too. So I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Todd Burrier.
Good morning. Thank you, Mike, for that kind introduction. And I got to dovetail a little thing in about Leadership Carroll. You know, I've been fortunate to have been a part of that now for, I don't actually remember how long. Maybe it's been the last 10 years or so. And it's pretty cool to see the impact it has, not just from a community perspective of the people getting to know each other, but then what those people go on to do in the community of Carroll County. You know, if you look at the people making things happen in Carroll County, and this is my experience, a lot of them have gone through Leadership Carroll. So, and I don't say that because I'm a speaker. It's not really, my part is tiny. It's about the whole thing. It's just such a really cool thing. But anyway, thank you so much for being here. It's an honor for me to have an opportunity to speak with you guys. You know, I absolutely love Carroll County, lived there for 25 years, would still live there if you had a big, beautiful river going through it. But it was time for me. I grew up on the water, I love the water. So we moved to North Carolina about 2 years ago. And, but I still come to Carroll County frequently. So anyway, this morning we're going to talk about what I call the path to higher achievement through 3 Circles Living. I'm going to start with my flip chart here, and then I'm going to take you relatively fast through some slides. But you know, I want to give you a little context before we dive in. For those of you who don't know me, you know, I'm just a regular guy. I don't know why my voice just went south. Just a regular guy, you know, I'm no smarter than anybody else. My path has been a very interesting one, full of lots of struggles, not just with my own introversion and anxiety and low esteem, which stays with you the whole life. But, you know, really don't come from much and didn't grow up with much in the way of ambition. And my results in life reflected that. The first half of my life was a disaster. And then I met the woman I married, who I've been married to for over 31 years. And I guess it's not a coincidence that since then things have looked up and got a lot better. But, you know, I started my first business in 1989 And that ended up being a disaster financially. It was a treasure of learning, but a disaster financially. Started my second business in 1996 when I was flat broke. Found a product I believed in and a methodology for building a business that was about helping others first, which is just a core concept for me. And I was very blessed to build a business in the nutritional supplement field. And then I started my third business to run alongside of that, where I train and teach and coach in corporations in the early 2000s, because I'm a teacher at heart. It's what I'm called to do. It's what I'm purposed to do. It's why I'm here. Having said that, I know I'm one voice. And like I said, I'm just a regular guy. So, I don't know everything. I've made so many mistakes. It's mind boggling. Even the stuff I teach, I still mess that up in real life all the time. But my cause, my passion, my cause, and this is really the platform of the book is I want to help each person that I possibly can to achieve their best life possible, because I believe that when that happens, then people are in a position to make their unique contribution for the betterment of all. And I believe that if everybody was doing that, we would be in a whole different world all the time. And so that's what drives me. I'm all about fundamentals. Everything I teach is something that I live and have proven. I'm not a theory guy. And again, I will say it again, I'm just one voice. So hopefully I can provide some nuggets for you that are of value today. And so really today's purpose, you need a lot of awareness because there's only so much teaching you can do in a short window. And then this is going to be a little bit of look at this from the perspective of how can it help you, what's actionable for you, but also what's actionable for you as a leader or someone who is in the process of developing your leadership in an organization. And so I want to start by giving you, a little flip chart action here and take you through some really simple fundamentals or platforms that what I'm going to share with you sits upon. Okay. So those of you who are in Leadership Carroll, some of this will look familiar to you. But it starts with the concept of credibility. And, and again, I mentioned that I started with nothing, and I'm a non-confrontational person. And so everything that I do is about steady growth. I'm not fast. And so when I teach you fundamentals, those are things that if you apply them day in and day out over time, they bear tremendous fruit. So first, I want you to think about what drives your opportunities in life. And what drives your opportunities in life are essentially what drives your opportunity with people. And your opportunities with people are driven, and this C represents credibility, by your credibility. So your credibility drives your opportunities. So to the degree that someone trusts you, because that's what credibility essentially is. It's a trust in whatever arena that credibility applies. Then you would be trusted with an opportunity. And if you're an employer, or if you're a leader of people, an organization that you serve, you can think about this. The people that you will give something to, right, are people you trust to a degree. You believe that they are ready. They are credible to that degree. So you trust them with an opportunity. And then the action they take produces a result. And that either confirms the credibility, right, and says to you, okay, I hit the mark on that one, or might even raise it some, or if it's not delivered, then you say, okay, that person wasn't ready for that. Pretty simple. The thing about credibility, and everything I teach sits on this platform, because it then becomes, everything in life really is about developing principles and operating in a set of values that then govern how you navigate, as opposed to figuring that out on the fly. Now that takes a little bit of time to get to, but credibility, which is the second platform I want to share with you here, is fundamental to all things. So credibility is essentially a blend of your competency and your character. In other words, it's what you do and how effectively you do it, and then the character is who you are in that process. And I learned this a long time ago when I first started studying John Maxwell. And then later, the teachings of Blanchard and a lot of the people that I've mentored through over the years, that's where this came from, Jim Rohn. And it's so incredibly true, because if you think about it, the level of credibility is dictated by both of these things. You know, people who are, and I'll just put these up here, are extremely competent, but you don't trust them. And so from a credible perspective, they're not credible with you. And then you also know people that have great character. They're just nice people. They give you the shirt off their back. You can trust them, you know, all day long, but they're not competent in the thing you'd like to do. And so they have zero credibility in that thing, right? I hope you understand that. It's a very simple model. But again, I'm breezing through this just to give you the platform. So the thing about credibility, right, is the application of credibility is influence, which is leadership. Now, we're not specifically going there today, but when I teach leadership, this platform sits underneath, because you cannot influence others, which essentially influences the purposeful application of credibility. You cannot influence people without credibility, right? Because we live in a volunteer age, and it's just the truth. What drives credibility is trust. So trust is the thing that underscores all of this. And trust, it's the big thing, right? It's the big thing. So everything is about this, right? Because trust is something that, you know, takes a while to build, right? And just like credibility takes a while to build. And the thing to recognize about credibility is its perception, right? No one can know actually how confident you are, actually what your character is. They can only perceive it based on their interactions with you, right? Their observations of you. And, you know, if you think about leadership, one of my favorite quotes is from Warren Buffett that relates to this. You know, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked. That is leadership, right? Because you can be perceived as credible. You can be perceived as good, and then difficulties come up, right? So let's be real. Over the last 4 months, you've learned a lot about some people, right? That's the truth, right? Because that's what difficulty does. Smooth seas do not make the sailor. Difficult seas show you who's a good sailor, who can do this real well, right? That's what it uncovers. That's sort of my focus is I want to help people who are cultivating this, right, on purpose, because this was my path to develop everything that I've been blessed to have accomplished in my life through lots of messing up. It's come from honoring this platform and being conscious of that. And so I want to give you tools and concepts and ideas so that you are purposefully developing credibility. That's the beauty of it. When I first started, I had zero. I had to work to cultivate it and grow it. And anyone can. And I've worked with lots of people over the years who have become extremely successful from very little because they took this to heart. So today we're talking about the 3 circles piece, and that goes right to the heart of the trust of this. So the 3 circles, and this is a quick concept, looks like this. So it's not my place to tell you what your priorities should be. Those are yours uniquely, right? Everybody has their own. But one thing is pretty clear. These 3 things, if they are not among your priorities, they will be exposed as having should have been at some point, right? One is health. The other is, that's a heart for those who can't see my beautiful artistic tree. That represents your love relationships, and then money, right? So money represents career, etc. I go into great detail in the book about all this, obviously. But these 3 things are naturally extremely important, right? And the reason you know something should be a priority is if you neglect it, what will happen, right? If you neglect your health, it will break. If you neglect a relationship, a close relationship, any relationship really, it will break. If you neglect your career, it will break, right? The challenge, right, is that we are cultured to put this one first, right? And first I want to say I got nothing wrong with this one. I've had none before. I've had no money, and that wasn't very much fun. And I've had abundance, and that was a little more fun, right? Obviously, you can do a lot more. You can make a bigger difference. You can make a bigger contribution. The key, though, is understanding that if you get these in the right order, this one will take care of itself. And that's what the whole philosophy of the 3 circles are. And I'm very, this is very near and dear to me because I had it wrong. when I was early in my career, this is back in the early 90s, I was building my first business and I was working my tail off. I tell the whole story in depth in the book. But, I was becoming successful. Again, I didn't come from anything. So this was the first time I was ever making money in my eyes, making significant money. And I was miserable. I felt terrible. My health was suffering. My relationship was in the toilet. Fortunately, I was married to a woman who was committed to being married to me, because I was not a good person to be married to at that time. And I remember waking up one day and going, wait a minute, wait. I'm getting something wrong here. This is not working out. And so I became purposeful in trying to figure out how to balance all this. And what I understood over time was, oh my gosh, when you get this right, it feeds each other. Because if you think about it, when you take care of your health, you have energy. And your health, by the way, it's easy to look at it from a physical perspective. It's more than that, right? It's physical, it's mental, right? It's the whole thing, right? It's self-care. When you take care of yourself and you develop yourself, that's not a selfish thing. That is taking care of you for the people that you care about, because then you're better able to show up. Relationships require time and attention. They don't require things. They require you to show up, to be there, which means you also have to know how to be there, right? Again, the pandemic has in some cases been very difficult for people who have not nurtured relationships. And then suddenly they're spending a lot of time around someone they haven't nurtured. That's not a great recipe either. So when you take care of this, you feel good physically and emotionally, which allows you to invest here, right? And this is a very deep thing, because everybody's going to work hard. I mean, working hard is the price of admission today, right? If you want to even sustain at any level of accomplishment, you got to work hard if you want to get anywhere. So that's a given. So you're going to work hard. The question is, what is left over of you for the people you love? You have to take care of yourself so that there's plenty left over for these people. And the irony is that when you do this, the way you show up in business markedly changes. You take someone who is physically doing well, feeling good, has energy, feels good about self, who's now got the security and the joy of a strong relationship. Wow, that person is a magnet in the marketplace. And so they are highly productive, highly focused, and much more successful. And so when you get it right, and that's what the 3 circles is about, it's a game changer. And apply this again to an organization. What kind of organization would you like to have? You want an organization of people that are energetic and vibrant and joyful and magnetic? Or do you want an organization of people that are struggling physically and suffering from scarcity thinking and, unfocused because they got issues at home? I mean, we're all going to have issues at home. That never goes away, right? That's part of life. But I'm talking about issues at home. Right? No, so if you start to understand how that all comes together, you can see that this flow is a game changer. Now, one more little thing from a corporate perspective, if you make sure I can see this on here. If you think about a corporation, right? So your corporation's got a big purpose it's trying to accomplish. Well, what makes that possible? First of all, you got the well-being of the people. And then there we go, right? You got the well-being of the people, and you got the relationship of the people. You know what? If you know people that are healthy and well and energized, company's it's not going to be as profitable. It's not going to have as much productivity. If they're not playing well in the sandbox with each other, going to have an issue there. And then over here, you got the business activities, right? The things that bring in the money. All of that matters. To think that only this matters is very short-sighted, right? It's very short-sighted and very limiting and not sustainable. So I'm going to jump to some slides now, and I'm going to take you through relatively fast, which will be a mission for me, because I can go tangentially on any one of these slides and turn this into a 3-hour presentation, which I'm not going to. All right. So let's talk quickly about the big picture, what we're really looking at here. So big picture corporately, improve personal performance. That's pretty simple. I remember hearing Jim Rohn say this many, many years ago. I was very fortunate to have had dinner with him a couple of times years ago. If people feel better or felt better, they do better. Now take that on a much larger scale. We're not just talking about physical, we're talking about emotional, we're talking about feeling good about themselves, about their skills, about their capabilities, about their confidence, having a good attitude. All of that affects performance, and you know that to your core because you deal with that every single day. Here, I'm someone who is blessed with the wiring, right, of anxiety and depression. Right? Doesn't mean I have it all the time, but most mornings I wake up more like Eeyore than Tigger, right? And so I have to be very purposeful to center, which is why I do what I do, which is take care of the things I just talked about every day. I got up early this morning to do those things, to work out, to feed my mind, to feed my spirit, right? To make sure that I can show up. That's what you want, right? Because when someone shows up that way, look, we're all emotional creatures. That's the nature of a human being. Nothing goes to logic first. Everything goes through emotion. So how someone feels is not airy-fairy. It's everything. Right now, Kelly Frager is doing something on emotional intelligence. She'll speak right to this when she does that on June 18th, because that's the whole platform of that, right? Is that self-awareness to know, hey, that's a feeling. That doesn't describe me. That doesn't mean it's me. That's just what I'm feeling in this moment, then logically acting. So you have people feeling good, man, performance just skyrockets. Corporately, then you're going to have improved profitability because you're going to have higher productivity and you're going to have less downtime. That's pretty simple. You're going to attract more talent. You know, when you have the kind of environment that's based on growth and teamwork and people feeling good and abundance, man, I read this just yesterday in the latest John Maxwell book, Leadership, which is an excellent book. He said, look, if you want to recruit more leaders, develop a reputation for investing in others, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. Who would you want, right? If you want to grow and develop, who do you want to be with? You want to be with an organization who cares about you to develop you. And then sustainability, pretty simple, right? People are operating this way. Retention is going to be higher. People are going to grow and performance is going to be consistent. And then, you know, positive community impact and image. Let's be real. The best marketing you could ever have is your employee base loving your company. There's nothing better than that because they're out there in the community representing you all the time. They are billboards. So the platform, again, I know this is a shameless promotion of the book. Health first, and health is total. And I'm going to touch on these or dive into these here in a minute. Take care of self in order to show up better in relationships, and all businesses relationships too, to show up better in your career pursuits and any other pursuits you might have. And you can ultimately operate in what I call the sweet spot. The sweet spot is like the zone. You've heard of that concept, the zone, or some people describe it as the flow. You know what I'm talking about, right? Is you get into a period of mind or you're doing something and time just goes, right? Like I can be teaching, I can be doing it. I've been doing a series of leadership webinars for Europe during the pandemic, and 2 hours just gone like instantly. Why? Because I'm operating in a zone, and that's where you want your people to operate, in the sweet spot. You want to live your life in the sweet spot as much as possible. You can't do it all the time. Obviously, that would not be a real thing. But man, the more you can be there, the better off. And then leadership implications. So how does this impact you by doing this yourself and fostering this? First, you have to understand the microscope. And this is just the truth, right? It might not be fair, but it is true, right? All leaders are under a microscope, right? By definition, most people that come to you in an organization came because it didn't work out so well where they came from. And they're not looking at you and saying, oh boy, I wonder what's wonderful about you. They're coming in typically with a negative lens. And that's just normal, right? I mean, if you think about how everything works, the negative things that people are bombarded with. And so you have to be totally on your game, not just in your work, as a human being, right? Because they're going to look at you and say, where are you incongruent? You're telling me to be disciplined and work hard, right? That's what you are doing. Be disciplined and work hard. But look at you. You're not doing that over here. You're not doing that over here. Why should I? Do you see what I'm going? Let's just be real. It's not a forgiving position. Leadership is accepting responsibility in many different ways, right? You give up rights as a leader. You don't get more, you get less, because you have to consider everything you do. You have to consider how you show up in the community. You have to consider the way everything you do reflects, because they have to see you as having integrity, as having wholeness. And so you are under a microscope. And that speaks to trust. Again, that's what integrity is. Integrity is wholeness, right? The same here as there, right? Disciplined here, disciplined there. Productive here, productive there. This is a key foundation of leadership. Trust is everything, absolutely everything. The greater people trust you, the more they will run through walls for you. It's just the bottom line, not to mention the more opportunities that you will get. Simon Sinek said in his latest book, you can't tell people to trust you. You have to make it impossible not to. So true, right? So true. You can't walk in a room and say, I'm credible. You can't walk in a room and say, I'm trustworthy. You just have to be that, right? You have to function in that way, and so congruently that people can't help it but go, oh my gosh, I would want to follow this person. I want to be mentored by this person. I'm glad I work for this person. And then that leads to inspiration, right? Who you are is what inspires people. Right? That's what makes people want to follow. And if you're living in this integrity-based way, 3 circles style, where you are flourishing as a human being, right? And you are flourishing in your relationships, the people that you are serving in your organization will be like, man, I want to learn what this person knows. I want to follow. This is the life I want, right? It's not just about the dollar. It's the whole thing, right? The dollar will come. And then the next piece to that is empowerment. You know, when you invest in people, what are you saying to them? You're saying you have value, and that I care about you. How important do you think that is? Well, I'm going to tell you. 85% of the people that come to your workplace have low self-esteem. And actually, that's, that is a statistic that's been around for a long time. I think it's higher, actually. I think some people have low self-esteem in a lot of areas, and maybe a little esteem in certain areas where they've developed confidence, which we'll talk about in a second. But most people, because they've been so beaten down in their life, right? They've been told what they're not. They've been told what they can't do. They've been surrounded by negativity, right? For their whole life, they've been conformed into one way of learning that doesn't fit everybody's intelligence style. And so most people are like, what's wrong with me? As opposed to what's right with me. I go to great lengths to help people uncover their strengths and skills and talents and abilities and affinities, right? So that they can go, oh my gosh, I had no idea I had all these tools in my tool bag, right? As opposed to what's wrong with me? How come I can't do this, right? Here's the deal with empowerment. I call it belief algebra. Self-belief is what empowers, right? And belief algebra is, first, someone believes in you. Someone. And then you believe in them, right? So someone believes in you, then you believe in someone, and then eventually you believe in you, because then you're like, okay, I must be worth believing in. That's how this works. You can't just go, hey, I believe in you. You got to demonstrate all these things. That's the power, right, of giving people tools. And then culture. This breeds awesome culture. Think about the culture of your business as an immune system and a magnet, because that's what it is, right? You want your culture to be so awesome, right, that the wrong people will be like, oh, that's too good. I don't want to go over there. And then the best talent be like, man, I can't wait. When's there a crack in the door so I can come in? All right, so let me just check the time. Oh, I'm not doing too bad. All right, so let's just jump into, take you through the pieces real quick. So the physical piece, this is what you want: energy, vibrancy, longevity. This is a tough one, right? And we can't spend time on this. And this is, my primary business over the years, nutritional supplements, is all centered in this arena. But there's a lot of issues, right? What made COVID so scary is the degree of health compromise in our culture, right? Because of poor diet and high toxicity in food and soil and blah blah blah. And the UNC did a study that 88% of the population is metabolically unhealthy. That's a scary number. When this stuff is fixable, right? It's fixable for the most part. And so you can foster this in your organizations by putting in place programs or having speakers. And, there's lots of different things that, some insurance brokers are doing things to help you. I'm not an expert in all that stuff, but the bottom line is sickness is expensive. Wellness is lucrative. Just an easy way to look at it. Sickness is expensive. Wellness is lucrative. And even in my team, I have health coaches that, you could have come in and they can speak to you if you need something like that. But the bottom line is you got to model it and then you got to foster it in your organizations. But here's where you can make an even greater purposeful impact. And that is the mental part. And you see the word mental, and I talk about it being made up of emotional, intellectual, spiritual. You could probably put a few more things in there. But put the word develop in front of that. Developmental. This is where you can be actionable. This was the game changer for me, right? Because again, I grew up as a train wreck, literally a train wreck. And my story, I don't have time to tell it, but man, I was so far off the rails, had such a poor opinion of myself. And when I got exposed to the idea that I could be purposeful and that I could work on me, which happened in 1989, that was the beginning of the change of the course of my personal life. That's when I poured myself into books, and then I worked on myself, on my skills, and trying to overturn all the negativity and poor self-opinion. And over time, it made a huge difference. Again, who you are as a human being, how you're wired, that's never going away. Right? That's who you are. But that doesn't mean you're a tree and you can't move, right? You can grow and develop on top of that. That's what we do. I'm grateful that I've had all that and that I deal with all that because it helps me help others. And it helps me, I'm just grateful for the life that is possible when you can work on things. And so attitude, confidence, focus, all these kinds of things are affected by your lens. And your lens comes from two different things, right? It's the static lens, which I call your hardware. That's literally like your history, how you grew up, what you went through, all that kind of stuff. And that's not highly changeable fast, right? It doesn't change real fast. So, for example, statistics say by the time you were 17, you heard something negative about yourself, whether it was just no, or whether it was you can't, or you won't, or you're not, or fill in the blank. I'm sure you got your own, right? 150,000 times. You talk about brainwashing. You were conditioned and brainwashed to think you couldn't do very much, right? That's just the bottom line, right? That is part of your hardware. Right? Not to mention anything else that you experienced growing up, the way you were handled and taught, the environment you were in, the community you were in, all that stuff. That takes a while to change, right? It doesn't go away. It's always with you. But, right, you can subtly begin to make adjustments in that hardware over time. That's what purposeful work in this area does. But the variable lens, that's the day-to-day thing. That is highly changeable, highly effective. And you can affect that like that, right? You can affect that by putting something positive in your brain, and then 10 minutes later, you feel really good. You feel inspired. That's affecting your variable lens. And so that has a lot to do with your quality of life, how you are in the three circles. If you're feeling good physically, if your relationship is good, if you feel good, right? It affects your variable lens. I mean, we've all had the experience of somebody, us walking in the office and saying hello to someone and they practically bite our head off. And we're like, what did I do? Nothing. You didn't do anything. That person just had something that impacted their variable lens, or their life in general is not very good right now. And you just happen to step right in it, right? That's what the lens does, right? This is directly the area you can make a massive impact, because this has a lot to do with skills, tremendous amount to do with development and skills. So 4 things that I want you to consider here. 1, interpersonal competencies. 2 is productivity competencies. The 3rd thing is business competencies. And the 4th thing would be leadership competencies. So if you think about business, most businesses focus on number 3. Business competencies, right? You bring someone in and you teach them the competencies to do the work. And you should, right? I mean, that's important. Here's the challenge. Most people are coming into the workplace with very little in the way of interpersonal competencies, very little in the way of productivity competencies. And so essentially, we're teaching people the skills of the job on top of a faulty platform of competencies, those core competencies. When you go back to this credibility curve right here, this whole bottom of the block is core competencies. There's 3 sets of them: the competencies of the work, plus the interpersonal competencies and the personal productivity competencies. Those things are not taught anywhere, right? They're not taught. I have an MBA. I was not taught this stuff. I did not purposely have to do this. And I'll share what they are here in a moment. But wow, that's why people aren't confident, right? They are so lacking in skills and don't realize it, right? Because there's no measuring stick until they're like, what? How come I don't know how to navigate this discussion? How come I don't know how to get these things all done in the right time? Because no one ever taught you the basic skills to do that, right? I mean, it's amazing, right? That we're as productive as we are, given the fact that we don't get that kind of learning. And then leadership competencies, they are built directly not on number 3, right? I mean, leadership is not about doing the work. Leadership is about leading others in doing the work, right? It's about people. If you don't have great interpersonal competencies or great productivity competencies, then being in a leadership position is only going to put you under a microscope that is not going to look very nicely on you, right? It's going to be one of those mirrors, those magnifying mirrors you put up, and you see them in hotel rooms. I guess I don't have one in my house, but I've seen them before, right? Where you're like, oh my gosh, I never saw that thing because the mirror is so giant, makes your face look this big. That's what happens suddenly in a leadership position, and all these things are exposed. Oh my gosh, I don't know how to navigate this conversation, but I have to because everybody's looking at me, or I've got to make a decision here. I don't know how to actually make this right decision. So this is where this all comes in. It builds on everything, and it is the basics that lead to confidence. So competence and confidence are partners. If you think about anything in your life, it doesn't matter what it is. Think about the areas in your life where you're like, oh yeah, I could do that. And the areas of your life are like, nah, I can't do that, or I wouldn't do that, or I don't know about that. It's totally about confidence, and it's totally about competence. Wherever you're competent, you're confident. And wherever you're not, you're not. Period. And this is why these areas, right, are so huge. And this is all in the first circle in the 3 circles, because it's about the human being. It's about the development of the human being. And so just quickly, what I'm talking about, listening. You would think, right? We all got ears, right? This is a superpower in today's world. It's always been a superpower because naturally we are self-focused. That's how we're built, right? We're built self-focused, and listening is others focused, right? It's totally about the other person. It is a superpower, right? I built my whole life on, once I started building something as opposed to destroying stuff, right? I built the whole thing on a couple of these competencies, and this is one of them. Listening is a awesome competency, but most people don't remotely have it. They just don't remotely have it. Questions, this is a leadership superpower. Every leader should know multiple questions for every situation. What? Because that's how you navigate it, right? You can't grow somebody by just telling them what to do. You got to grow somebody by helping them think for themselves. And you do that by asking them good questions. And that's how you navigate every situation. You can't go into life and you can't go into leadership from an assumptive perspective. If you don't ask questions, you're operating on assumption. Enough said. We know what that equals. Physical language, you might call it body language. Writing skills. These 4 things, oh my gosh, it's as if they were never done. And it's worse now than ever, right? I mean, again, they're not focused on in any basic educational curriculum. Yet these are the very skills that allow you to be effective with another human being, and all successful business is built basically on people. I know there are outliers, right? You can take any bell curve and you have outliers. There are statistical outliers, right? There's people that know how to like sit in their home and make millions of dollars. Yeah, I know. Well, there's also people that can run, like 100 meters in 9 seconds, right? Those are statistical outliers. I'm talking about things that work for everybody, right? That are part of the everyday human being's ability to do better, to navigate life in a better way. These 4 things, imperative, right? And I'm not saying I can teach your writing skills very well. I can give you the basics, but the first 3, those 3 I've worked on a long time. And then you start to get into the productivity skills, planning, prioritizing, goal setting, time utilization. Boom, another superpower, by the way, right? My 2 superpowers, listening and time utilization. Those 2 things. A lot of other stuff, not very good at. Matter of fact, lots of stuff I'm terrible at. But you don't need to be great at everything. That's never been true in anything. And nobody is in everything because nobody's wired to be great in everything, right? There's nobody that has every strength. Most people have strengths and weaknesses. You learn how to manage the weaknesses, which I talk about in the book, by the way, while uncovering your strengths and figuring out how to put them to work in what you do. It's not really that complicated. It just requires diligence, problem solving, decision-making, critical thinking, teamwork. These are all core competencies. And yet very few people come to the workplace with any measure of any of these. And so think about this. What would it be like to have your organization skilled in all these areas? Wow. Mind-blowing. Be mind-blowing. Now, here's where this has the greatest impact. All of these things affect how you show up in relationships, right? So relationships are next. And so they're just taking the health piece, right? Again, I've coached and mentored and taught and worked with so many people, thousands and thousands of people all over the world over the last 30 some years. Can't believe it's been that long, but, and the one thing is clear that lots of people, I say, especially moms, moms would be like, I don't have time to take care of myself. I got too much to do. I get it. Right. But the truth is, if you don't take care of you, eventually you can't take care of anybody else. Right. And so it's sort of one of these things like chicken or the egg. You got to step back. You got to get off the merry-go-round and make the adjustment and let it play out, because you have to take care of the caregiver. You just have to. And this is true in everything, right? You cannot work yourself to death. It just doesn't make any sense, right? And so when you take care of yourself, do it for the people you're going to invest in. Try to shift that. Some people won't get on a treadmill for themselves, but they'd get on a treadmill if they knew it would help somebody else. That's a way you can shift it. So when you look at these 4 arrows that represent relationships, I'm just breaking it down into 4, for simplicity's sake, 4 relationship styles, right? Or areas, business, community, friends, and then your love relationships. Remember, relationships require time and attention, all of them, right? Business, you can't just call on someone every time you want to sell them something, right? After a while, they'll be like, no, thanks. You got to invest in relationships. The challenge, right, is that, again, this is a cultural thing. Everybody focuses on business relationships, right? We're going to show up there the best we possibly can. And then we're going to show up pretty well in community, right? We want to show up. We want to present the best image, put our best foot forward in the community, right? Because that's a little bit about our reputation, that's all good. And then our friends, we pretty much we let our hair down a little bit, but we're there for them. And then the people we love. If this bites a little bit, it's okay. Then it should. But a lot of times they get what's left over or they don't get anything, right? We come home tired. We come home fatigued. We come home drained. We're not on our P's or Q's. It's so easy to take the people we love for granted. It's so easy to not listen to them. Look, I'm very skilled at this stuff and I mess this up all the time. And even though I have awareness and skill, still mess it up, right? You have to be the greatest place to practice all of these is at home because you're the most comfortable, right? And so as the most comfortable, you let down the most. It's the ultimate way. So tends to be where the attention goes when in fact we want to break that apart and we want to put it in the right order. You see, when you get it in the right order, and this is not, again, nothing that I'm sharing is anti-business. This is to make better business. If you do these things, and I have a lot of examples running around out there, people who've excelled, companies that are doing great. Why? Because they're following these philosophies. You take care of your relationships at home. Wow, the way you feel. I mean, look, everybody knows that if you have challenge in a love relationship, you are out to lunch, right? You might come into the office or you might show up at your home office right now, depending on your situation, but you're not there. Your body is there, but you're not, right? Your brain is gone. Your emotions are a mess, right? You can't make decisions well. You're just that feeling, that blender in the stomach. It's horrible. But man, when that's going good, you feel great. You feel awesome, right? You feel empowered. You feel like you got the world, right? Because look, if you have your health and you have love, you don't need much more. Now you're operating from abundance. When you operate from abundance in business, you are magnetic, right? You're not operating from need. Who wants to deal with someone operating from need, right? You want to be someone's focus to help you when you're doing business, right? You don't want to be, oh, I got to do business with this person because they need it. You want to be like, I'm grateful to do business with a person because they're awesome to do business with. This is what happens when you get this right. When you take care of the people that you love, your friendships are going to be better. But man, community-wise, you're going to show up in your community in an entirely different way. And I'll tell you what, you think about it like this. You show me someone who takes care of their home life, and I'll show you someone that's got great friendships. You show me someone that takes care of their home life and their friendships, and I'll show you someone that's got a great reputation in the community. And you show me someone who's got a great reputation in the community, and I'll show you someone that's killing it in business. That is a foregone conclusion. You can step back and make a list after this of the people that you notice in the community that vibe really well, and you'll notice they do fantastic in business. It's just uncommon common sense. That's what this is. And so where this takes you is to what I call ideal career, right? Ideal career, confidence, competence, and credibility. When you build this, when you culture this, when you lead this, when you demonstrate this, when you model this, man, now you have the ability to increase trajectory of your company, trajectory of you personally. You know, there's a gentleman that I have mentored, trained, coached. When I first met him, several years ago, he'd been in the same position at his company for a long time. Since then, he's had multiple promotions, doubled his income. Why? Because he's worked on the stuff that made him a better person. And then that translated into being more effective with people, more effective in the workplace. This is not hard. It takes time, right? It's nothing that I teach is microwave. I don't believe in matter of fact, the microwave might've been one of the worst things that ever happened to us, right? All of a sudden, we can get food just like that. What about everything else? Can't we get success like that? Can't get with skills like that? Now we all fall for the latest. If you just get this program, you'll be the super business person. No, you won't. you'll be the same person trying to use this program. So you dramatically increase your velocity of the way your business works. The way, it's not fast, it's compounding, right? It compounds. All these things compound. And then the third thing that is something that you really have to consider and understand, right, is the idea of the heart pursuit and the side gig. We are in the gig economy, and we also have just gone through an issue, or in the midst of still an issue, which is exposed, right? Some of the financial compromise that people may have. Right? 78% of the country lives paycheck to paycheck. That's been pretty exposed. So it's important to recognize that not everybody that walks into your workplace is career motivated. Matter of fact, most people are not career motivated. Most people do not want to lead your company. Most people do not want to be the senior VP. They don't. They got something else that they want to do. They want to come in, feel good, feel valued, be able to do a good job, feel fulfilled in that work, feel like they're making a difference, feel like they're mattering, and then earn the kind of money that they need to go do the thing that matters most to them in life. And when you can connect that dot in leadership and in your organization, you have people that will never want to leave. People don't often leave for money in companies. They leave more from leadership. That's primarily where they live. Statistically, that's one of the number one reasons they leave, is they didn't like the environment, they didn't like the culture, they didn't like the leadership. But money is an issue, right? And so lots of people want to monetize the thing that's on their heart, or have something on the side, which you want them to have this. The reason you do is it helps them hone skills. It helps them to faster learn all the skills I showed you earlier, because they're responsible for all those skills. And then it improves their attitude. It gives them a reason, right? As a leader, it's your job to make them want to show up 100% in your workplace, right? That has nothing to do with what they might do on the side, but they may want to do well in the workplace so that they can utilize that to help the thing that's on their heart to do. Everybody's got the heart thing. You've got the heart thing. Many of you, right, who are watching this, have a heart thing you haven't acted on yet. I'm just going to tell you this because you need to hear it. It ain't ever going to go away. You're going to have to act on it at some time. If you've always thought, I got to write this book, or I got to do this thing, you got to do this thing, right? You have to. You can do it in 15. I wrote my first book back in 2004 because it showed up in my journals, because I journal every day as part of the developmental piece. It showed up in my journals off and on for like 5 years. And I thought, okay, all right, okay, I get it. It's never going to go away. Regret is not something you want to live with, right? You're never going to regret, for the most part, things you try. You're going to regret things you don't, because there's going to come a time in life when certain things are no longer accessible, right? I'm never going to play pro sports. I kind of missed that opportunity by a long way. I missed it talent-wise too, so it's probably a bad example. But the point is, you want people to do what they have to do, right, to develop themselves, to live their best life. And if you are a community, as an organization that fosters this, you will attract incredible people who will run through walls for you when they come into your place of work. All right, so last thing I want to finish with is, give you a couple little takeaways, because I gave you, I think I gave you a lot of quick content this morning. But for you, right, if you're not living in this way, and you might go, Todd, I don't believe you, and I respect everybody's decision to live the way they want to live. I support and serve and help those who want to live the way this path leads to, the life it leads to, and the results it leads to in business. But if you want to really get this going, you got to start by being proactive. You got to start by planning, right? And that means you got to plan and execute in that order. You got to physically invest in yourself. You've got to invest in developing yourself and your skills, and you got to pay attention to the people that you love. You do that, you are positioning yourself to show up better in your career. So that's the first thing. You got to plan it. And again, planning is a competency a lot of people don't have. And it is such a crucial piece. And then from an organizational perspective, foster the well-being. I'm not sure how it makes sense for your organization to do it, but give that some thought. Depending on the size of your organization, it may look a little bit different, right? Some of my clients are, big companies, and they have wellness facilities in their companies, right? Some of my smaller company clients, obviously they can't do that, right? But they work at doing other things. And then train the other areas, right? You definitely, it is true. You would much rather train your people who then actually outgrow your ability and you lose them than not train them and keep them. And if you become, if you find that, well, your business model just can't provide enough growth opportunities for the super talent that's coming through your door, you'll be known as someone who does that for people. You will never be short on great people wanting to come through your door. So how I can serve you, if you'd like me to serve you or you'd like to talk to me, is obviously I do coaching and I do corporate coaching. There's companies that have me on retainer to coach some of their upper level people. I do training. I do university style training or academy style training for leadership, and also for 3 circles and the interpersonal competencies and the productivity competencies. And those are, two of the primary ways that I serve the business community. It's not my full time because I run another business. So I work with several clients at a time, but, not every situation is right for the client or for me. So we talk about it first. So I hope you got value from this. I'm going to stop the screen share now and bring Mike back in. And I think I managed to leave a few minutes for a little bit of Q&A, which is astonishing for me, but let me stop the share. Mike.
Todd, thanks a lot, man. Hey, I'm just thinking for anybody out there listening, and we have over 50, this is a little taste of what Leadership Carroll is like, because you come in at the retreat, you're also there at the commencement. And when I looked at the people who are on this call, there are a lot of them that have been through Leadership Carroll. So obviously it's great to have you here and do this. So I appreciate you giving a little commercial for yourself there, because businesses can certainly glean a lot from bringing you in for training. I don't see any questions yet, but I'll talk for a couple seconds and look for any. If anybody has a question, just at the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's a little thing that says chat. You can just simply type in your question and I'll see it. But I wanted to also ask you, Todd, if people would like to get a hold of your books or something like that, where would they go to do that?
Yeah, the book, it's 3 Circles Living, Achieving Your Richest Life Possible, Todd Burrier, and Amazon is where it lives. And okay. It's in Kindle form and in softback, and the audio format is supposed to be out any day, but I don't know when it's going to be.
That's cool. I've got somebody asking here, and I'll leave this to the people from CMC. Where can we get a copy of this webinar recording? I know that we'll be having it on our Facebook page at some point, but CMC will have it on theirs as well. So I think that's probably a good way to do it. And anybody interested in getting one of the books, if you haven't bought one yet and you want to go to Leadership Carroll, you don't have to buy it, because I bought copies for everybody in this year's class and next year's class. So there's 2 spaces left. There's 2 books there, and we might even be able to get you to autograph it for the folks that are going to sign up. So, all right, let's see if we have any questions. I see a few things written here. Basically, I think everybody can read this. Where can we get a copy of this webinar? Awesome information. Thank you so much. Definitely purchasing the book. And then Richard Turner saying it's going to be the actual recording is going to be on the CMC website, carrollmediacenter.org. And then how do we find out more information about Leadership Carroll? You go to the Chamber's website, carrollcountychamber.org. Under special events, we've got a drop-down tab. You can find Leadership Carroll. Or if you're interested and you want to get your application in, because usually after we do things like this, the class will probably fill up because we've only got 1 or 2 spaces left. If you're really interested, you call me at 410-977-3111, which is my cell phone. And I can walk you through, and hopefully you can get your application in before the next person. So I don't see any questions right now. Todd, it's always great to have you talk. Honestly, I've heard some some bit of this for the last several years at Leadership Carroll, and I always get something out of it because it's it's kind of like a baseball team. If you're going to be good, you got to do the basics. You got to go through the ground balls. You got to go through the batting practice. You got to go through all these things to get ready. That's why hopefully we'll have a little bit of actual baseball this year. But they can't just say, well, we'll start tomorrow. They got to go through spring training. They got to go through all the basics in practice. And really what you're talking about are the basics. And sometimes we forget about the basics.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I'm just a fundamental guy. I'm not very techy, not very fancy, but the fundamentals they don't go away. I once heard it said there are no new fundamentals, right? There aren't, right? There might be new tools and there might be new applications, but it's always still fundamentals. And
you get new things like Zoom here. Here we are Zooming instead of doing this live. So what can I say? I got Peggy Kozo, who's been through Leadership Carroll, saying, Todd, you're an inspiration for us all. Thank you for sharing your passion.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you, Lisa, earlier for that comment too. Appreciate that.
All right, I want to take a couple seconds here. Oh, is there another comment? No. I want to take a couple seconds here, and I want to thank again our friends at the Community Media Center. And I want to introduce to you, and I'll come back and wrap up with a couple last things, but I want to introduce Mr. Richard Turner, Executive Director of the Community Media Center. And you guys are awesome for us. So Richard, give us a little spiel about what you guys do.
Well, first, wow, that was developmental for sure. So thanks, Mike, and to the Chamber of Commerce and your extended network. Now that we're in the stage of reopening, the resources and networking opportunities that we have are just really a great value from the Chamber. So it's really important to us, and certainly I think anyone who takes advantage of what the Chamber has to offer in this time will just be of great benefit. And has been benefit for us. And thanks to you, Todd, this is always great insights and motivation for a more meaningful and fuller life. I first met Todd when in Leadership Carroll, and I always found his spirit and passion and wisdom, not just inspirational, but really a practical lesson that I can use on day one, and every day is day one, right? And so Todd, thank you for letting the CMC share your works with our community. You always get me to smile, so it's just awesome.
Thanks, Richard.
And thanks to the CMC team, for responding during these challenging times and keeping our community informed. I'm super blessed, and they are my superheroes. So I couldn't do anything without really their commitment and their strength. And I always try to apply what Todd talks about with them. And so it's always a great reminder to hear these things. I'm glad we have this as we can use as a daily reminder. Mike encourages us to shop local, and I encourage you to watch local by heading to our website, carrollmediacenter.org, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. When you follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube feeds, you'll get notifications of upcoming live programming, like the additional webinars that we're working in partnership with the Chamber. Thanks very much, Mike.
Thank you. And Todd, the only negative thing I ever have to say is, well, I've got a couple, but the only real one is, you go over all this stuff and I think, oh man, I'm not doing this. Oh man, I'm not doing this. Oh man, I'm not doing this. But it does motivate me to try to get back into it. And I want to say thanks for that.
Mike.
And I also want to say that we're extremely happy at the Chamber to be able to bring to the business community this actual webinar. We've done like five of them, I think. We have more set. They're all free. We're trying to bring some quality information to the business community at a very difficult time. And there's probably no better message that we can send than to shop local. We have a lot of local business owners on this call. I saw Miss Smack, Terry's from Terry's Tag and Title, and people like that give back to the community. So many of them do. And keeping your money local is supporting the people that support you, that are there for us. So I want to just, say, go to our site, carrollcountychamber.org, for all of our members, all of our events. Other than that, I just want to say have a great day. Todd, thanks again for being here. I got another question. Sorry, did you say this webinar will be recorded so I can share it with my managers? Yes, it will. It'll be on the Community Media Center website. It'll be on their Facebook page. And in a short time, maybe a day or two, it'll be on our website too, carrollcountychamber.org. Share it with the management team. Have them call Todd, bring him in, or have a Zoom call where they can get trained by him. It'll be a better place to work. Even though it may be already a great place, you bring Todd and it'll be a better place. So again, I want to say have a wonderful day. Todd, thank you so much.
Thanks,
And
Mike. I appreciate it.
we'll see you at the Leadership Carroll commencement. It's going to be virtual for this year, so that's going to be good. So to everybody, be kind, stay safe. We're all really in this together, and we're going to get through this thing together. So thank you so much, everybody.